This wide range of organisations and researchers undertaking such targeted work into different features of parental engagement is a testament to the importance of parental engagement. If this conference is going to have a lasting impact, and if we're going to move from gesture politics to real policy action, then we need to keep the focus on what works and indeed what doesn't.
Parent engagement really is more than what you might call parent involvement. Now look, volunteering at the school canteen is wonderful, wouldn't disparage it for a second, but it's not the extent of parent engagement that really makes a difference to kids in terms of their learning outcomes. You see, parent engagement isn't necessarily incredibly complicated and difficult stuff. Just words of encouragement, the evidence suggests, and the parents' expectations for their kids make an enormous difference. The evidence just for involvement is a bit weaker, but the evidence around parent engagement, more broadly defined, is extremely strong. John Hattie here in Melbourne suggests it can be equivalent to around 2 to 3 extra years of schooling for a kid if we do parent engagement well. That's a big gain. If you do parent engagement well, other things being equal, you will improve kids' education outcomes.
My sons are 26 and 2 of them are 23. They could do any of those kinds of things that we typically ask parents to do in schools without using any parent knowledge. They don't have parent knowledge, they aren't parents. So where we need to go, I believe, is to the place of parent engagement. For me, the difference between involvement and engagement is that with parent engagement, we're asking parents to share their parent knowledge. Not just their funds of knowledge, but their parent knowledge. That knowledge that's intimate, intuitive, bodied, embodied, the kinds of things that I've just run through. That deep, deep held knowledge about a child that no one else in the world has. When we're asking parents to come together with us to share that knowledge, to participate in decision-making, to contribute to curriculum, that's when we're moving to the place of parent engagement.
How many of you in this room have been classroom teachers? Ah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let me ask you a quick question then, secondly. How many of you, there we go, how many of you in your pre-service training, okay, received a full course, not a workshop, a full course on family engagement? Let me see those hands go up. Uh-oh. One. There were a lot of hands raised a mere 10 seconds ago. But as you can see, we have done a pretty lousy job of building our own capacity to work with families. This is a question I get asked a lot. Why is it, after all these years of research, 40 years now, we have wonderful research linking family engagement with student outcomes, family engagement with wonderful outcomes for our schools and our districts, but yet we are still struggling to have effective practice in family engagement? Well, you just saw why. The big reason why is that we have not built the capacity of our staff or our families to partner.
What I'm going to focus on is the process of engagement itself, on what happens and what is central to engagement. The work that we do is essentially relational, and we need to take on board exactly what that means. So what I'm going to look at is evidence regarding the role and nature of relationships, the neurobiology of interpersonal relations, key features of effective relationships, challenges in authentic engagement, and conclusions before I totally run out of time. So relationships They are the medium through which we transmit effective strategies to help families change the way that they relate to kids. This is the message. The relationship is the medium. It is a necessary but not sufficient condition. You have to have it first of all. If the parent doesn't feel they are listened to, then they will not listen to you. Parents seem to be disempowered. In many cases, you seem to know a lot more. There's one way in which they are very powerful. They can take no notice of you. And they will do that if they don't feel, if the relationship is not set up in a way in which they feel they can trust you and that you understand their circumstances. Having a positive relationship with a parent or parents is a necessary but not sufficient condition. You have to do something intentionally and purposefully to build parental capacities to provide their kids. So, this is not saying that the content side of what you've got to offer is not important. It's saying that it doesn't come into play until you've got the relationship going. Then you can use that as the medium through which you can drive change. But you can't just have a relationship and everyone feels happy with the relationship and then think you've done your job. You still have to change. If the parent doesn't change in their capacity to support the kids' learning, you haven't done your job. Engagement is a necessary but not sufficient condition for creating change or for being an effective helper. It's the medium through which effective learning and change and programs can be delivered.
So what I'm going to do is broaden the lens beyond family and community engagement in school to say we need to now be thinking about it more broadly. It's not to say family engagement in school is not at the heart of this or a key part of it. It certainly is. But I want us to take a little time to broaden the lens and think about what the larger landscape of learning looks like, is becoming, and could be. We're in the shift now to anywhere, anytime learning. We know there's lots of evidence from this from lots of places. Children and youth, in fact, all of us learn anywhere, anytime, not just in school. So as leaders, I think we also have to deal with, and this is American data, I assume something like this must exist here, on the equity gap in anywhere, anytime learning. So if we open the lens beyond school, we see the difference between the more economically advantaged and the economically disadvantaged in terms of access to key anywhere, anytime learning resources. The parents of the more economically advantaged parents are spending 220 hours more in reading and those kinds of things. The kids are getting access to preschool. They're getting access to after school and extracurricular activities, summer learning, field trips. That all adds up to a 6,000 hour learning gap, basically between the rich and the poor. So we have to be paying attention as we build anywhere, anytime, and lifelong learning to equity. So we're trying to move in our thinking, again, from a school-centric framework to an anywhere, anytime learning framework. From school and readiness focused, a lot of transition is on school and readiness. Institution-centered school and siloed, it's the school. To a focus beyond the school, the child, and the curriculum, a user human-centered approach where people are helping to co-create the transition, and where it's integrated and focused again on anywhere, anytime learning pathways.
And so just the final thing that I want to say is, having set out the challenge, you might need, I'll just go to the next slide. So these are a whole lot of resources that you may find useful in reflecting further on what you've seen, heard, learnt, where you can get more information. So I really encourage you to use those resources. Yes, everyone's taking photos. I love that. Yes, that's because we only have one tool now, as we've just been discussing. So look, my final thanks is very much to all of you, particularly for staying for the graveyard shift. Really appreciated. So thank you for turning up, participating, and being such fabulous participants in this first Parental Engagement Conference. Thank you so much. Travel safely.